Welcome, pilgrims, to the fourth sermon of the Roving God. If your soul is stirred by this chronicle, show your fervor for the master of mankind. Raise your thumb of approval high. Let the enemies of man hear your litanies in the comments below. And for the most pious, the most loyal, the most brave, swear your life to this crusade by subscribing to the cause. Go forth in his name. The Emperor protects. Chapter 4. The Calculated Variable Location. Inquisitorial Black Ship, Saints Scourge, Bridge. Date, redacted. Subject, the entity, designation, guest. You speak of takeout and livestock. Lord Inquisitor Hestia paced the command deck, her boots clicking sharply on the metal grating. You intervened in a holy war, manipulated a canoness, and vanished, only to reappear eating fruit. I demand a tactical debriefing that adheres to linear causality. The guest leaned against a logic engine console. He was still in the gray fatigues, still chewing the apple. He looked heavier, more solid. Linearity, he mumbled, swallowing a mouthful of pulp. I am trying. It is difficult to keep my feet nailed to the floor of now. The past keeps trying to slide underneath the door. He reached out and tapped a pressure gauge on the console. Stop touching that, Hestia snapped. If you truly wish to aid the Imperium, if you are not some Zinchian trickster, then let me direct you. I have the strategic overlay of the entire sector. She gestured to the hololith table, which lit up with a star map of the segmentum obscurus. Here, she pointed to a red-stained system, the hive world of Armageddon. Or here, the Cadia remnants. These are pivot points. If you are a weapon, let me aim you. The guest looked at the map. He didn't look at the planets Hestia pointed to. He looked at the empty black spaces between the stars. Your scale, he said softly, is adorable. You look at the infection on the skin. You do not see the virus in the blood. He took a final bite of the apple, leaving only the core. Armageddon is a loud noise, he continued, turning away from the map. But it is stable. The friction there is constant. It feeds the stream reliably. I do not need to tend a fire that is already burning well. Then where? Hestia demanded. Where could be more important than Armageddon? The guest smiled. It was a sad smile, like a parent watching a child try to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. The places where the silence is threatening to win. The places where the odds have collapsed. He tossed the apple core over his shoulder. It should have landed in the waste recycler bin. Instead, it hit the rim of the bin, bounced sideways, and struck the release valve of a cooling pipe. Hiss! A jet of steam shot out, startling a passing servo skull. The skull veered sharply to the left, colliding with a distracted astropath who was walking in a trance. The astropath stumbled, his hand slamming onto the emergency void shield cycling rune to catch his balance. The ship's void shields flared to maximum density instantly. 1 second later, the Saint Scourge hit a hidden warp reef, a pocket of solidified immaterium that the sensors hadn't picked up. Crash! The ship shuddered violently. If the shields had been at standard cruise levels, the hull would have been torn open, venting the bridge into the warp. As it was, the lights merely flickered. "Report!" the captain screamed. "Impact with a warp reef, my lord," the helmsman shouted, pale-faced. "Shields held, just barely. If they hadn't cycled up a second ago, we'd be dead." Hestia stood frozen. She looked at the astropath, who was apologizing to the servo skull. She looked at the steam venting from the pipe. She looked at the apple core lying on the floor. She slowly turned to the guest. He was wiping his hands on his pants, looking bored. "You," Hestia whispered. "You did that." "The stream must flow," the guest said simply. "And it cannot flow if you are smeared across a reef of crystallized emotion. You were drifting. I corrected the course." Hestia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. He wasn't just a powerhouse. He was a manipulator of probability. He could see the dominoes falling before he even touched the first one. "If you won't go where I send you," Hestia said, her voice steadying with effort, "then you are leaving again." The guest nodded. "The board is large. I cannot stay on one square." His form began to flicker. The gray fatigues blurred. The flesh ran like wax. For a moment, he was a Talarn desert raider, then a Cadian Kazarkin, then a hooded tech priest. The flickering slowed. The form grew leaner, tighter. The heavy muscles of a soldier condensed into the wire cord strength of a predator. The fabric turned black, absorbing the light of the bridge. When the static cleared, he stood encased in a synth-skin body glove. It was matte black, fitted with sensor baffles and stealth mesh. A spy mask hung at his belt, and the symbol of the Officio Assassinorum was stamped faintly on the shoulder. Hestia recognized the silhouette immediately. The Vindicare Temple, the snipers, the patience of the Imperium. An executioner, Hestia murmured. You seek to kill. I seek to prune, the guest corrected. He adjusted the fit of the glove, flexing his fingers. Sometimes, a single branch blocks the sun for the whole garden. It must be snipped. I suppose I cannot stop you, Hestia said, crossing her arms. You do not answer to the Inquisition. I answer to the hunger, the guest smiled. But why would you want to stop me, Hestia? I am just ensuring the game continues. He turned and walked toward the bulkheads. He didn't dissolve into light this time. He simply walked into the shadows of the bridge, and when Hestia blinked, the shadow was empty. Location: Hive World Xeno 77. Designation: Grindel's End. Sector: Ultima Segmentum, Fringe Space. Subject: Vindicare Assassin, Vorn. The rain on Grindel's End was acidic. It hissed against the Faro Creek gargoyle where Vorn lay prone, eating away at the stone like a slow cancer. Vorn did not move. He had not moved for 3 days. His heart rate was slow to 4 beats per minute. His breathing was shallow, recycled efficiently by his rebreather mask. To the thermal sensors of the patrols below, he was indistinguishable from the cold architecture of the hive sump. Through the scope of his Exodus rifle, he watched the procession. They were down there, the cult of the Star Emperor. To the uninitiated, they looked like downtrodden workers, draped in heavy robes, chanting hymns that sounded vaguely imperial. But Vorn knew better. He could see the subtle deformities, the bulbous foreheads, the extra ridges of bone, the wrongness in their gait. And in the center of the plaza, surrounded by 1,000 cultists, was the target, the Magus. He was a tall, pale creature, radiating a psychic aura that made Vorn's eyes itch even from 2 kilometers away. The Magus was preaching, his voice amplified by voxcasters, weaving a spell of loyalty and subversion. Vorn checked the windage. He checked the Coriolis effect. He checked the structural integrity of the bullet in the chamber. Variable check. Distance, 2,400 meters. Wind, 40 kilometers per hour, gusting. Target shielding, psychic kind shield, class 4. Crowd density, high. Vorn ran the simulation in his head. If he took the shot, the kind shield had a 94% chance of deflecting a standard round. He had loaded a turbo penetrator round, but even then, the Magus's premonition sense was high. Probability of successful kill, 12.4%. If he failed, the Magus would know he was here. The cult would go to ground. They would trigger the psychic beacon. The Tyrannid hive fleet, drifting in the dark void nearby, would wake up. This world would be consumed in biomass harvesting within a solar month. If he succeeded, the head of the snake would be cut. The brood mind would shatter. The cultists would revert to confusion and feral panic. The planetary defense force could sweep in and burn them out before the sky darkened with spores. 12.4%. Those were not acceptable parameters. The Officio Assassinorum demanded certainty. Vorn's finger hovered over the trigger. He was sweating, a cold, chemically suppressed perspiration. If I miss, the world dies. Your windage is off by 3 microns, a voice said. Vorn reacted with the speed of a genetically modified killer. He didn't spin. He rolled, drawing his Exodus pistol in a blur of motion, aiming directly at the source of the voice. A figure was crouching on the gargoyle next to him. He was dressed in the identical synth skin of a Vindicare Temple operative. He wore the mask. He held no rifle, but his posture was perfectly relaxed, mirroring Vorn's own. Vorn's finger tightened on the pistol trigger. Identify. Verification code Vermilion Alpha. You have 3 seconds. The stranger didn't flinch. Codes are for machines. I am, let's say, a consultant. There are no other operatives in this sector, Vorn hissed, his aim steady on the stranger's eye lens. I studied the deployment roster. You are an imposter. If you don't recognize me, the guest said, his voice filtered through the Vox mask, sounding calm and metallic. That just means I am very good at my job. Isn't that the point of our order? Anonymity? Vorn hesitated. The logic was sound, but the situation was impossible. "Who are you?" "I am the margin of error," the guest replied. "I am the 1% you forgot to carry." He pointed down at the plaza. "The Magus," the guest said. "He is twitchy. He senses a thread snapping in the future. His shield is oscillating. If you fire on the downbeat of his heart, the shield weakens by 40%. But you can't hear his heart from here." Vorn kept the pistol trained on the stranger. "And you can?" "I can hear the friction," the guest said. "It sounds like wet velvet rubbing against glass. It's very annoying." The guest leaned forward, looking through an invisible scope. "I am here to spot for you, brother," the guest said. "We are going to thread the needle, but you must listen to my count. We are not just killing a Xenos hybrid. We are feeding the war. If this world falls to the bugs, it goes silent. No more struggle, just digestion." The guest shuddered. "Boring. So, put down the pistol, Vorn. Let me calibrate your shot." Vorn stared at him. The stranger knew his name. He knew the mission. He moved like a Vindicare, and the aura coming off him. It wasn't the cold dread of a foe. It was the focused, icy calm of a master. Vorn slowly lowered the pistol. He turned back to his rifle, settling the stock against his shoulder. "Brief me," Vorn whispered. "What is the call?" "Wait for the chant to hit the crescendo," the guest said, his voice sliding into Vorn's ear like oil. "When he raises his third arm, the shield will flicker. That is when we ensure the story continues."